Okay, this is chapter 2, section 3 on music. So music is a set of tones that combine in patterns that are pleasing. Noise is a sound with no pleasing patterns. Now, you can say that that music then can be up to like the ear of the chooser, basically. So maybe you think something sounds musical or sounds good to your ears that maybe someone doesn't necessarily agree with. I would say my husband and I are similar because he likes different types of music than I do. Some of the stuff he listens to, I'm like, doesn't sound like music to me. It sounds like noise. But it sounds like music to him. But music is a set of notes that combine in patterns that are pleasing. That is what music is. So when you're composing something, you want it to sound pleasing. Or if you're playing an instrument, you want it to sound good. You don't people covering their ears when they hear it. So it's a set of notes that combine in patterns that are pleasing. Noise has no pattern. So when you are just hearing people screaming, or if you're just hearing a whole bunch of people together, talking in different tones and at different loudnesses, sometimes it begins to not be pleasing. It starts to bother you, and that's what noise really is. Okay, so we start talking about instruments and things like that. We talk about their tone, basically. And their tone has to do with a natural frequency. So that lowest natural frequency of a particular instrument is what we call its fundamental tone. And again, usually it's kind of that middle tone that it has, and then we have tones that go over. They're called overtones. And so these are higher natural frequencies. And the way that sounds blend together, we take maybe the basic fundamental tone might be the same for a couple of different instruments, but the overtones that it has, those are the things that start to combine and produce the music and the way that they blend with each other to produce music together. So for instance, you might have a trumpet and a flute, and maybe their fundamental tones might be like, C, like middle C, might be the same fundamental tone, but you put their overtones in together and those tones start to blend together in what we call music. Resonance will affect the sound quality because it increases the loudness of certain overtones. So depending on the natural frequency of the particular instruments will help affect how those things blend together. And every single instrument will also have its own natural frequency, just like when we looked at that video of the highway going, or the bridge going up and down because its resonance was taking place because the wind had matched the natural frequency of the bridge. Natural frequency is part of every instrument, but the way that it goes with its overtones, the blending of it, results in the sound wave and the music that you hear. Now, we talk about a lot of different types of musical instruments, but there's 3 basic instruments as far as the book is concerned. There's the stringed instruments, there's the wind instruments, and there's the percussion instruments. A lot of times we break wind instruments into a couple different types, or maybe we make our stringed instruments into a couple different types, but in the book, they kind of just basic that way. So we've got our stringed instruments like your guitars, your violins, your bass, things like that. Our wind instruments are things like trumpets, clarinets, and flutes, and then percussion or anything that, like a drum set or anything like that, cymbals, things like that you clang together or hit when you play them. And again, they all blend together in their own way, so they'll have their own fundamental tones and overtones, which allows like an orchestra to play together and really blend together and sound really good together. So these each have a way of their pitch and loudness being controlled in various different ways. And the way you do that helps to determine what their overtones and things like that are, which allow them to be played and sound nice. Okay, I've mentioned acoustics before. Acoustics is the study of how sound waves interact with each other in the environment. Acoustics are something that become kind of really important when we're talking about things where you want to hear good sound. So movie theaters, concert halls, things like that, where you want to be able to hear what's going on. A gymnasium, who cares about the acoustics of that? We're there to watch a game. We're not necessarily there to hear what's going on. So when we're talking about how different things are designed, we think about the acoustics of that. So it's the study of how the sounds interact. Reverberation are those echoes, how it echoes and how those echoes come back and forth. And then when that happens, those sound waves start to interact with each other in different ways, causing us to hear things differently than we might. So if we have like soft seats or soft surfaces, they will absorb a lot of those sound tones and don't allow them to bounce off the walls and interact with each other. If we don't, if it's like hard bleachers, hard floor, they're just going to bounce all over the place and interact with each other in whichever way they want. So the echoes are the things you're trying to control in a concert hall or in a movie theater. You don't want those things like echoing all over the place. So you really start to think about how those things are designed. So if you're someone who helps design those types of things, you're very concerned about the acoustics. And this would go for any sort of concert that you might go to. The way they set up the stage, the way that they allow the audience to sit in a particular place would be very dependent on the acoustics in the area. So different places where you might, like even outside concert halls, like maybe you've been to the Pinewood Bowl out at Pinehurst Park. And the way that they have that set up even is a way for people to be able to hear, even though it's an outdoor seating area. So acoustics become very important to that. So this is the end of section 3 on chapter 2. It's all we're going to learn about sound. There's more to the chapter. There's stuff about the ear, how you hear the sound in your ear, but we'll learn about that next year. And then how we use sound, that's also another thing. But again, those are things necessarily we're going to go into this year. But this is the last section. You can be working on your instrument projects. You can be doing the homework for this, which is available either in your packet or in PowerSchool Learning. And then hand it in to me by taking a picture of it and sending it to me, or scanning and sending it to me. Enjoy!